Okay. Great. So what we want to talk about today is PowerPoints and something called Presentation Zen. And Presentation Zen is a series of books, and it's also a design style of a slide design style. They're written by a guy named Gar Reynolds, who lives in Kobe, and he teaches at Kansai Design University, I think, or Kyoto Design University, one of them. He used to work for Apple Computer as a designer, and he studies Zen in Kyoto. And a lot of his work is influenced by Zen. And it's basically how to design good PowerPoints, good PowerPoint if you're using Microsoft, Keynote if you're using Apple, but any kind of slide, how to do good design. And true story, I read the book the first time on an airplane, going to a conference in America, an English teaching conference, very big conference, about 8,000 people. And I spent the next week noticing how bad most slides design is, and including my own. And so what I want to do is share a PowerPoint with you guys that I'm kind of embarrassed about, because, oops, because it has a bunch of my slides that are really, really bad, okay? Now, as I said, I'm talking about PowerPoint or Keynote, doesn't matter. Have you ever heard the expression death by PowerPoint? It means like this guy, who's not actually dead, but who feels like he is. Death by PowerPoint is not my term. It just means a PowerPoint that is bad. And if you go to Google and search for it, you'll get almost 8 million hits. That's how common it is. Okay. And so bad slides ahead. I'm going to show you mostly from my own PowerPoints, because as I said, I read this book on the way to a conference, and it made me realize I was making most of the mistakes that many, many people make with PowerPoint. And so I redesigned them. But before we get to that, do you know this guy? Who is he? Pardon? No, we're going to get to Steve Jobs in a minute. The other company. Steve Jobs is Apple. This guy is Microsoft. Bill Gates. Yeah. Bill Gates, he used to be the richest man in the world. And Microsoft, well, I'm not going to, you know that I'm an Apple guy, so I'm not going to compare Apple and Microsoft. What's wrong with this slide? Talk to your partner. What's bad about the slide? Ideas? Too much information. Yeah, there's way too many. I counted them, but they're like 23 or 24 different pictures. Too much information. What's the most important picture? You don't know. That's the problem with small pictures, is like, what's important? Okay, so that's Bill. And the weird thing is, I said, he used to be the richest person in the world. Slides are free. Why put so much stuff on one slide? There's no reason. Now, the person you were thinking of is Steve Jobs. This is Steve Jobs from Apple. What's the difference with this slide? You know exactly what he wants you to pay attention to. One more thing, whatever that thing is what he wants you to pay attention to. And some people say this next slide is the worst slide ever. As you know, America was in the war in Afghanistan, and it was going badly. And so they hired a company to study it and say, what's the problem? What are we doing wrong? And the company made a slideshow, and they said, the American military, that means armies, problem in Afghanistan is this: useless. Because there's, a minute ago, you said too much information. I'd suggest it's not even information, it's just data. Because it's too much, you can't get information from it. All it is stuff, right? The answer is to simplify. And that gets us to Presentation Zen. And this, my mini presentation here is called Presentation Zen, Before and After. And the book is in English. There is also a couple of versions. It used to be called Simple Presentation in Japanese. The new edition is called Presentation Zen in Japanese. I've got both. So if you're interested and want to read them, you can borrow my copies. But what I'm going to give you, and this is the handout I just gave you, these are some key design points that you can use in your own presentations. And a minute ago, when you said the problem is it's hard to design, I would suggest it's not so hard, but number one, you have to think about design, and you have to just take the time. And to design like this does take more time, okay? But it's worth it. Okay, rule number one, photos are stronger than clip art. Clip art is illustrations, and both are useful, photos and clip art. In Japan, clip art is very, very popular, in part because Japan loves cute, right? Japan loves animation and manga, and a lot of what you find is clip art, and that's useful for some stuff. But let me show you some slides. These are the same slides before and after I learned about Presentation Zen, okay? Here I was talking about the senses, sensory modalities. Now notice this slide. I've got an eye, ear, nose, touch, and taste. Here's the same information with photos. Which is stronger? Let me show you the first one, clip art, photos. Do you feel like that eye is looking at you? Yeah, photos are just more real, more realistic, okay? Here's a presentation I was doing about physical activity in the classroom. I started with this. This is a typical PowerPoint background slide. What do the circles mean? Nothing. That's just the design. I changed it. If I want to talk about physical activity, I had some people doing physical activity. Yeah, we'll come back to this slide. Another one about pronunciation. Hatson, right? And I asked the question, where does pronunciation begin? And I asked that question, and everybody first says a mouth. And then I say, yeah, and then wait a while, and people come up with other answers like mouth, tongue, lips, teeth, lungs, voice box. And all of those are true, but then I take it the next step, and actually pronunciation begins in the mind. Okay, now, same set of slides, but with photographs. Where does pronunciation begin? And I start with the mouth, and then add tongue, teeth, lips, voice box, lungs. Pronunciation begins in the mind. It's photographs, so it's stronger. You'll also notice something I did. I didn't center stuff. On this one, where does pronunciation begin? That's default on PowerPoint. It goes to the middle. I thought it was more interesting to put the margin on the side. Okay. So photos, big, bold photos, right? Here's one I did about an activity called body clocks, where the students pretend that they're clocks. Same idea, but with a human, it's stronger. Be careful with animations. This is what you talked about when we were starting out. Here's an activity I do called Well-Balanced Students. And the next animation, I'm embarrassed that I ever used. What did you notice? The sound and the trrr. What was I trying to do? You don't know. All you noticed was the motion. You don't notice my meaning. That's the problem with animation. It's very easy for people to not notice what you want them to notice. They just notice the movement, okay? Here's what I do now. Well-balanced students. And I just show two students doing the activity. Okay, next one, simple backgrounds. Okay, here's a presentation I've done a lot in many countries. ELT means English language teaching, and the science of happiness. And this is a standard old style PowerPoint design with clip art. Here's the same information like I do it now. Just a plain black background, nothing fancy. Which slide is simpler? The black one or the brown one? The black one looks simpler, right? And it is, but what's interesting, there's actually more information here than on the first one. But the first one had different fonts, it had background stuff, it had extra pictures. So it just got messy. Here's another one. Drill, a tool for boring. Same idea, drill. And when you think drill, here by drill, I mean bunker and shoe. But what's the more common meaning of drill? Like a carpenter's drill. So I gave you a picture of that and the same words. So simple background. And very few words, usually 1 or 2 words per slide, and no bullet points. Do you know this word, bullet points? What's bullet? Right, like in a gun, the thing that shoots, right? That kaponokama, right? And a bullet point, well, here's a joke that I found on the internet that you see if it makes sense to you, or if it's funny. Bullet points are called bullet points because overuse of them makes the audience crazy. They want to get a gun and shoot the presenter, right? Those are bullet points. PowerPoint makes it super easy, makes it automatic. Don't use them. They don't help. They just add, they give you too much stuff. They put too many words on a page. And here's one, I mentioned the science of happiness. Here's a slide I used to use that talks about how what makes people happy. Remember good things in your life, do kind things, all of the different ideas. This is standard. These are bullet points. And kind of the common rule is no more than 6 bullet points on a slide, 6 words per line. That's way too much, right? Here I have a page full of words. Can you read them from where you're sitting? Maybe. If you were in the back row, probably not. And then I even added more stuff. I added topics and functions and grammar, and I added circles to talk about what I was talking about, and I added more junk. The basic rule is 1 idea, 1 slide. So slides are free. You don't need to put many ideas on the same slide, okay? So here are all of these ideas. But when I present now, I introduce them 1 idea at a time. Remember good things in your life. Take time to say thank you. Do kind things. Take time for friends and family. Learn to forgive. Forgive, urusu. Okay? And I mentioned this. Forgive people who hurt you. But you guys are teenagers, sure? You're all in your teen. Do you ever do stupid stuff? No? You're lying. Everybody does stupid stuff. I do stupid stuff. But what you need to know is in your brain, the amygdala, which is the part of your brain that controls negative emotion, controls anger. Okay, that is fully developed by age 15. So it means a 15-year-old can get as angry as you will ever get in your life. But the executive function, it's called the prefrontal cortex, is not developed, not fully developed, until mid-20s, 24, 25, something like that. Which means as teenagers, you will make mistakes. You gotta forgive yourself, right? When you make a mistake. Now, did you notice I just talked for like 2 minutes about this slide. There's only 1 word on the slide, 1 word twice, forgive. You don't need to put everything you're gonna say on the slide. Put your main idea, your main image, and then add what you want to talk about. Okay, stay healthy. Notice good things in your life. Learn to deal with problems. Okay, now I've introduced those 8 separate ideas. Now I can put them together and give you all of the ideas. And then remember on that beige slide where I had all of the ideas and I put circles on them. Now I can add the circles 1 at a time on the pictures. Topics like friends and family, staying healthy. Grammar points like remember is past tense. Noticing good things as they happen is present. Language functions, thanking and forgiving. So then I add the extra information. Okay, next design issue, rule of thirds. Do you know this? Did you ever learn this like in art class? If you've ever used a good camera, probably not the one in your phone, but if you've ever used like a professional camera, you see this. Do you know what that's for? I thought it was to show me where the center was. It's not. It's what's called rule of thirds. This is the most interesting points. These are the most interesting points to put the information. Okay, so remember this one, I showed you the slide before. Notice, where's the woman? Where's the title? The woman is on the up and down line. The title, body clocks, is on the horizontal line. This was taken by a professional photographer. Where did he put the tiger? Where did he put me? I'm on one line. The tiger's on one line. Okay. What you can't see is the chain that's holding the tiger, so he can't get away. Okay. Next one, contrast. Contrast is, it's often about color. You notice you can hardly see the yellow tack because yellow on white is poor contrast. Red on white is good contrast, so it's very easy to see those. Okay. A good rule of thumb is when you're making a PowerPoint, if you want to check contrast, use the 3 to 5 meter rule, which means you put it on like a laptop, and then you stand 3, 4, 5 meters away and look at the screen. Can you see everything? Can you read all the words? Can you see all the pictures? If not, either the words are too small or the contrast is not enough. So here's a slide I showed you before. What's not good about the contrast? What's bad? Top part you can read, right? Let's get physical. Can you read my name? Not very well, because it's the same color, yellow, but there's the shadow and the woman's legs. I took the same slide and I just put a 35% screen under it. Notice the difference. That's much easier to read than that. And the only difference is that light blue screen, which I'll show you how to do. Okay. So finally, put all the ideas together. Here's the same design you saw earlier, which I changed instead of 5 points on one slide. If you want to be happy, this is a Chinese proverb. If you want to be happy for an hour, what should you do? Ideas? Listen to music? That's a good idea. The proverbs suggest take a nap, but listening to music's good. If you want to be happy for a day, the proverb says, go fishing. If you want to be happy for a month, the proverb says, get married. Okay, it's not my proverb, it's a Chinese proverb. But okay, if you want to be happy for a year, inherit a fortune, get a lot of money. And if you want to be happy for a lifetime, help someone else. Okay, so those are my main ideas. These are my main design takeaways from Presentation Zen. Okay, and I used to end a lot of presentations with something like this, the end, which is kind of a pun, share da jare, right? Now, if I want to use the same idea, I use a photograph at the end. So that is my presentation. Stop the share. Actually, I'm going to stop the, okay, thank you very much. And